Hollywood once sparkled with perfect smiles and untouchable stars. But Paul Newman knew the truth hiding behind the cameras. He saw a side of the industry that the public never saw, and the names he discussed reveal how fame and power were often used to hide dark realities. These weren't movie roles. They were real stories Hollywood buried for decades. Behind Joan Crawford's glamorous beauty was a mother whose cruelty shocked many who knew the private story. Paul Newman once reflected on her during a 1979 interview, saying quietly, "Never believe an Oscar can hide the darkness in a family." Hollywood adored her. In 1946, she accepted her Oscar for Mildred Pierce in a glowing white gown as the industry celebrated her comeback. But according to later accounts, a very different life existed at home. Her adopted daughter Christina Crawford later wrote the memoir Mommy Dearest, published in 1978. In it, she described a childhood marked by strict discipline and alleged physical and emotional abuse. She claimed that clothes hangers became punishment, and that fear was constant inside the house. The memoir became an international bestseller and was later adapted into a film. While many readers accepted the account, others questioned parts of it. Several people who knew Joan Crawford defended her, arguing the portrayal was exaggerated. Because of these conflicting accounts, historians continue to debate the full truth. Regardless, the controversy permanently changed Crawford's legacy. She remains celebrated for her films, but also remembered for one of Hollywood's most controversial family stories. To the world, Bing Crosby was the warm voice behind White Christmas. Life magazine praised him as the perfect father, and NBC called him America's model dad. But Newman saw something darker, once saying, "They call him the King of Christmas. To me, he was a jailer dressed as an angel." Behind that image, his family later described a difficult home life. His eldest son, Gary Crosby, published a memoir in 1983 describing a childhood dominated by strict discipline and severe punishment. Gary claimed his father frequently used a belt and rarely showed affection. On Larry King Live, Gary broke down as he spoke about his experiences. The trauma affected the family deeply. Lindsay Crosby spent years in psychiatric care, and both Dennis Crosby and Lindsay later died by suicide. Dennis left a note in 1989 writing about recurring nightmares, and Lindsay died a year later. Some of Bing Crosby's other children have disagreed with Gary's account, and the family history remains disputed. What is clear is that the industry's dependence on Crosby's wholesome image meant that these private stories stayed hidden for years beneath the sound of White Christmas. In the late 1930s, when The Adventures of Robin Hood premiered, Errol Flynn became an overnight sensation. Audiences adored his charm, and Photoplay called him the man every woman longed for. But behind the golden image, rumors followed him. In 1942, Flynn was charged with assaulting 2 underage girls. The Los Angeles Examiner plastered the case across its front pages. The courthouse overflowed with reporters and fans. Flynn was eventually acquitted, but the rumors never fully disappeared. Reporter Sheila Graham wrote in 1945 that if his mansion walls could speak, Hollywood would not want to hear the stories. Tales circulated about wild parties and an environment where no one dared refuse him. Flynn died in 1959 at age 50. His body was so damaged that the coroner said it resembled that of a much older man. Despite the shadows, the industry preserved his heroic legend and buried the darkness beneath it. Mickey Rooney's name still carried the shine of an American sweetheart, but Elizabeth Taylor remembered something very different. In 1974, during a private conversation, she described being frightened by him during her early MGM years. During the 1930s and 40s, Rooney was MGM's biggest moneymaker. The Andy Hardy films made him a symbol of innocence. But behind the scenes, crew members described explosive outbursts. What haunted Taylor most, according to later accounts, was attention from Rooney when she was only 14 and he was nearly 25 after National Velvet made her a sensation. Her diaries from that period spoke of feeling trapped inside MGM's golden cage. Hollywood protected Rooney at the time. Columnist Hedda Hopper tried to hint at his behavior, but was reportedly forced to retract. Taylor carried the experience through adulthood. Rooney's private life mirrored the chaos. He married 8 times and eventually ended up nearly penniless. When Newman was asked about him in 1982, he said, "Hollywood has smiles that hide darkness." Bette Davis was celebrated for her fierce talent. All About Eve made her a legend, but those who worked with her often saw a very different side. Her temper was infamous. A Warner Brothers makeup artist remembered moments when she could charm reporters 1 minute, then explode at a supporting actor the next. The tension reached its peak on Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in 1962, where her feud with Joan Crawford turned the production into what Variety called a battlefield. In one scene, Davis allegedly shoved Crawford, and Crawford later retaliated by hiding metal weights under her costume. On The Private Lives of Elizabeth and Essex, she slapped Errol Flynn so hard the mark stayed for minutes. Crew members dreaded hearing her heels in the hallway. A colleague of Paul Newman who witnessed her publicly humiliating a young actress said, "No one denies Betty's talent, but I've never seen a woman spread so much fear on a set." Marlene Dietrich moved through Hollywood like a force of nature. At a Beverly Hills party in 1955, she entered in a black tuxedo, and the room fell silent. She was far more than the star of the Blue Angel. She treated seduction like strategy. Many who loved her ended up broken, according to biographers. Gene Gabin reportedly withdrew into depression after she left him. Writer Eric Maria Remarque found his wealth drained. Women were not spared either. Rumors tied her to Greta Garbo, who retreated deeper into isolation afterward. Some stories were even darker. Edith Piaf, after an affair with Dietrich, spiraled into alcohol and pills. Dietrich's own daughter, Maria Riva, wrote that growing up with her meant watching people treated like props. Many believe Dietrich's hunger for control began in her youth in Germany. Paul Newman summarized her as someone who treated emotion like playing cards. Kirk Douglas was celebrated as the embodiment of Hollywood masculinity, the hero of Spartacus. But away from the screen, he carried a reputation haunted by persistent rumors about predatory behavior. The most disturbing allegation involved Natalie Wood. According to her sister Lana Wood's memoir, in 1954, at just 15, Natalie was taken to the Chateau Marmont for a mentoring meeting with Douglas and returned shaken. In her diary, she allegedly wrote, "I must stay silent if I want to keep acting, but I feel filthy." Hollywood kept the story hidden for decades, even after Wood's mysterious drowning in 1980. These claims remain unverified and disputed, with no conclusive evidence, but they have continued to circulate in Hollywood lore. Despite the rumors, Douglas continued to be celebrated, receiving the Medal of Freedom in 1996 and an honorary Oscar in 2004. Paul Newman later said in an interview, "Spartacus may have been a hero, but Kirk Douglas was never a hero to the young girls he hunted." In the 1920s, Gloria Swanson reigned as Hollywood's silent film queen. She floated down red carpets in sequin gowns. Photoplay once wrote that she didn't just act, she turned her entire life into a stage. In 1928, she starred in Queen Kelly, directed by Erich von Stroheim. What began as a visionary project descended into chaos. Swanson demanded new costumes and ordered sets rebuilt. Crew members recalled laborers collapsing from exhaustion as costs spiraled. Stroheim was fired, and Queen Kelly became one of Hollywood's most notorious disasters. Off-screen, she lived with extravagance during the Great Depression.